We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're gonna kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me!
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first!
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Hi there, this is the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And today we're continuing our look at the Showtime series Rebel Highway from 1994.
This episode, Runaway Daughters, was episode 4 in the series and was written by Lou Rusoff and Charles S. Haas, directed by Joe Dante, and produced by Lou Arkoff, Deborah Hill, and Willie Kutner.
And we're not going to list the whole cast, but this is the main cast. Julie Bowen as Angie Gordon, Holly Fields as Mary Nicholson, Jenny Lewis as Laura Cahn, Dick Miller as Roy Farrell, Paul Rudd as Jimmy Rusoff, Chris Young as Bob Randolph, Dee Wallace Stone as Mrs. Alex Gordon, Christopher Stone as Mr. Alex Gordon.
Also appearing are Robert Picardo as Mr. Ed Cahn, Wendy Schaal as Mrs. Mildred Cahn, Joe Flaherty as Mr. Nicholson, Belinda Balaski as Mrs. Nicholson, Roger Corman as Mr. Randolph, Julie Corman as Mrs. Randolph, Fabian as Mr. Rusoff, and a special appearance by Samuel Z. Arkoff as a storekeeper.
A lot of those names seem very familiar, don't they?
Yes, in the cast and the characters.
Right. Well, obviously the cast, but we have last names like Gordon, Nicholson, Cahn, Rusoff, and those are all personnel from the AIP movies of this era. I thought that was interesting to include all those as kind of Easter eggs for us.
Well, it's kind of a Joe Dante thing. He usually will put Easter eggs of some sort in all of his films. And in this one, I think he had a chance to play around a lot more.
And there's a lot more going on Easter egg-wise than just the names of the characters. And I think we'll mention a few of those when we talk about the movie. This is based on Runaway Daughters from 1956, and we have covered that movie on a previous episode. So you can always listen to that to find out what happened in that one. We're going to mention some of the differences between the two movies. These were never straight remakes, and they weren't meant to be. However, there are a lot of crossover moments between the two films. And this movie opens with the Neville brothers singing Let the Good Times Roll.
This is a new recording from the 1994 soundtrack album. I thought it was interesting that when the title comes up, it's the exact same font and color that's on the original AIP poster.
Oh, wow. You caught that? I didn't catch that. And Joe Dante does a really good job getting the zeitgeist right here. We get scenes of like a newsreel.
It's a time capsule of the era. We see kids getting vaccinations.
Yeah, back when they believed in that stuff.
We see failed rocket launches.
McCarthy hearings.
Opening of the 3D film House of Wax.
A little bit of Nixon, a little bit of Fidel Castro. So we know what's going on in the world at this time. And then we get our first big Easter egg. A scene of Michael Landon about to go werewolf on a gymnast in I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
Yeah, we're at the drive-in and we get to watch I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and the print they're watching is much clearer than the one we had available to us when we did the podcast episode.
Yeah, well, we are not going to talk about that movie, though. But yeah, it would have been nice to see it that clear. But we're not watching the movie. The characters are watching the movie at the drive-in. Except they're not really watching. They're all making out instead.
And the drive-in is run by Joe Flaherty as Mary Nicholson's father, Mr. Nicholson. And I thought it was kind of funny. He puts a clock up on the screen saying that the concession stand is closing soon. So if they want to come by for their shrimp rolls, they only have this much time left.
And he doesn't take it down either. It stays up for at least the rest of the time that we're there. And this movie has music unlike the original Runaway Daughters. And we hear Come On Everybody by Eddie Cochran. And it turns out Fabian is Jimmy's dad, and Jimmy's Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Jimmy has a catchphrase, "Don't crowd me," which is one we heard Benny Saul say quite often in The Cool and the Crazy.
Oh, wow. So they're cherry picking from the various movies that are going to appear in this series.
And the character of Bob says he always knows just what to say.
This movie is really funny. It has a lot of very deft comedy touches. And I wouldn't call the original Runaway Daughters funny, although there are some humorous moments in it. So it seems like here, Jimmy's character is the one getting hassled by his father, where in the original, it's Mary getting attacked by her father. So I thought that was an interesting twist.
We haven't met all the parents yet, but I also noticed that there are no broken homes here, except for Jimmy's probably. We see he has a father and probably doesn't have a mother, and that's why he's a bad seed.
Right, but of the daughters, they all have both parents in the home. So it changed that a little bit from the original, where there were 3 parents out of the possible 6 available to guide their children.
So we met Joe Flaherty already, but they haven't established that he is Mary's father yet until she goes home and we meet her parents together. It's Belinda Balaski plays her mother and Joe Flaherty plays her father. And we learned that they have to finish these shrimp rolls before they go bad if they don't sell them at the theater.
Yeah, that was funny. And it's cool to see Belinda Balaski again. The last time we saw her, she was in Bobby Joe and the Outlaw, and she got killed there. Spoiler. And then we get to see Laura's parents. She has an overbearing dad and an obsequious mother. Dad is played by Robert Picardo, and Mom is played by Wendy Schaal.
And then we meet Angie's parents, played by Christopher Stone and Dee Wallace Stone.
They seem more like Audrey's parents, who would be the Laura character in this movie. They're partiers. They're not really strict with their daughter, but they're not exactly hands-off either. And Angie's Julie Bowen's character. So she's probably the most rebellious of the 3, but her parents are not so bad.
No, but like Audrey's character in the original, Angie seems to want to be parented a little bit. She tells them right out about her boyfriend.
He's a hood.
Which isn't true, because if it were, he would be wearing a tie. He wears a leather jacket.
Does that make him a thug? They at least seem to care about her, even if they don't really register that she's dating a hoodlum now. And so now we get to the inciting incident in the movie. Mary's boyfriend is named Bob, just like in the original, and they're making out under a tree. Bob wants to go a little further than Mary does at first, but then he starts talking about Sputnik, looking up at the sky, wondering if they're looking down on us, and just kind of proclaiming how excited he is in the whole space race thing. And that is, I guess, what topples Mary's reservations about sex, and they do it under the tree. So, of course, Mary gets pregnant.
Yeah, and her only choice seems to be to run away. And another thing that's different between this and the original is that all the girls want to run away at the same time. But she's not running away just to run away. Angie convinces her she needs to go and fetch Bob and get him to do the right thing by her.
Did you notice when they're all in the porch, all 3 of them, they find out Mary's pregnant and she's kind of starting to hyperventilate? They give her a cigarette to calm her down.
Yeah.
I really liked Jenny Lewis's character. And I only know Jenny Lewis because she's a singer of a band I like called Rilo Kiley. But to go back to 1994, and she's really quite young here. I liked the way that she was the voice of reason, but also itching to kind of get away too. But it's Angie who comes up with a plan wherein they can run away but not be blamed for it. They're going to have a cover story.
Right. They're going to fake their own kidnapping. But they don't put a lot of detail into this.
They don't need to. We get the idea. Angie makes a ransom note, arranges to have it delivered, and then the 3 of them run off. They're going to steal a car.
Which also happened in the original, but in the original, we didn't get to see it. We see the car being stolen here, and it's a lot more exciting.
It is. They find a truck that's sitting outside a bar, and it's got its keys in the ignition, and they get in, and they're going to steal it. And of course, it won't start right away because cars never start right away in movies. And the owner of the car comes out and sees that they're going to steal his car, and then he tries to confront them, and they almost run him over, which would have been more fun if they'd done that in the original movie. But I appreciate that they're giving us more of the running away here. I want to see the running away. I want a road trip movie.
Well, you pointed out that in the original, it's 65 minutes before they run away. And in this one, it's 32 minutes into the movie and they're on the run already.
Right. I think that's a much better balance of establishing the before running away and then dealing with the aftermath. And then we're going to see it's all what happens after they run away from here on out. Only at the very end do we get some kind of arrival scene.
Well, the next thing that happens is after receiving that ransom note, the private detective is called in.
Yeah, and it's our good friend Dick Miller.
It's Dick Miller, and he has his own saxophone theme in this.
I didn't notice that. But he does get a lot of those private detective noir moments. We see a light going through the window, and then the shadow of his name is cast onto the wall. And he's got the little desk and the one light burning.
Mm-hmm. And his name is Farrell.
And we're going to see a lot of Joe Dante's regulars in this movie, wouldn't you say?
Oh, of course.
That's kind of how he works.
That's one of his Easter eggs, I think, is he likes to use the same stable of actors.
Right, like Dee Wallace, Belinda Balaski.
And Christopher Stone and Roger Corman, Robert Picardo, and Dick Miller were all in The Howling, among other things. Roger and Julie Corman are Bob's parents.
Right, and they tell her that Bob has run off when she's expecting him to marry her. So that's the more instigating factor why they decide they have to run away, because Bob abandoned her, which is the opposite of the original, where Bob wanted to marry Mary, even though he was 20 and she was still in high school, which I thought was a terrible idea. I thought this movie dealt a lot more with the consequences of teenage pregnancy in the 1950s than the original did, because her friends kept telling her, well, if he doesn't marry you, your family's going to have to move away. And when one of the other mothers finds out that her daughter's friend is pregnant, she's like, don't be seen with her. And I think that was just a little touch of reality in this movie, which is largely kind of campy.
Yeah, there's a moment before they run away where Laura is talking to her mother, asking for advice. So she's talking about her friend who's in this situation. And Wendy Schaal plays her mother, and she's acting a little distressed because she thinks this is her problem to deal with.
Your friend, right?
Yeah.
No, Mom, it's really a friend.
And there is relief going over her face when she hears that.
Right. But she also says you can't hang out with her anymore. Can't be hanging around unwed mothers. So they run away, and then we see, I think, a great Easter egg. They stop at a gas station. Their stolen car needs gas, and the station's called American International Petroleum. And then, speaking of American International, Angie goes to a grocery store to get some supplies, and the shopkeeper is none other than Samuel Z. Arkoff, who is the dad of Lou Arkoff, who produced these.
And this grocery store is called the A&I Market, and they use the AI logo that AIP used in the 70s.
So we get both American International logos. That's pretty cool. I'm just already having so much fun with this movie. I think I had a smile on my face the entire time.
I kind of felt this one was made for us.
I think so too. It's sort of like a thank you to someone who's delved into the AAP catalog the way we have. A little gift for us. So yeah, the Children of the Corn's Courtney Gaines is the sheriff, and he immediately clocks Angie doing something wrong. So he's the first of many law enforcement officers who's going to be on her tail. We don't see a lot of that in the original. They're talking about how the cops are after them, but you never really see them encountering the police. So it's just sort of a threat that keeps them under Tony's control, the brother. We don't have a Tony in this movie.
No, they don't have anywhere to go once they hit San Diego.
Right. One of them has a brother, but it's not anything like the Tony character in the original. But we do have a lot of bad guys that they encounter. Almost no one they come across is on their side, except for one person. We'll get to that in a minute.
And pretty much everyone they come across has a gun.
Well, let's explain how they got a gun. So Courtney Gaines, the county sheriff, and his partner find the girls. They're camping somewhere. Lauren wants to take a bath, so of course she gets naked. We don't see anything, but they do. And they are like, oh, ho, ho.
Oh, I just want to say the other deputy, who's played by Leo Rossi, he pulls out the binoculars. He makes this whole production. He throws on his sleeves and puts the binoculars up to his eyes and makes a whole production of it. It's kind of funny.
But then the next part's not funny. They decide that, well, these girls are all alone and they are going to rape them. They only see two of the girls because Laura's gone off to gather wood. So she's not there. So they park their car down by where the girls were taking their bath. Fortunately, Angie has seen this and tells Mary to get out of the water and get dressed. So she's not naked when they arrive. But they immediately put the moves on them with the threat of, hey, we're cops and you've got to do what we say. And Angie sees that Laura has come back and Laura's like going to help them.
She's signaling that she's there and ready to help.
Yeah. So knowing that Laura's got her back, Angie pretends like she's going to go along with Courtney Gaines. It's really gross that she has to make out with him. I don't think Mary knows that Laura's there. So she's getting...
No, Mary doesn't notice.
Yeah, she's getting nearly raped by the other guy. And Laura pulls the cop's gun out of their car. It goes off. She didn't mean to shoot it, I don't think. It goes off into the air.
Sends her to the ground, so...
Yeah. But they hear that, and then they have to raise their hands and kind of back off, and they want her to give the gun back. But she shoots one tire, Then she shoots the other tire, and then she shoots out the radio and threatens to shoot them if they don't let them get away.
So they jump in their car and drive off. But then these deputies have to try and figure out how they're going to explain this because they're going to be the laughing stock of the police force, deputy force, whatever they are.
Or they could explain that they're going to rape some juveniles and see how well that goes over.
Yeah,
so
that's the other option. So
no option.
Courtney Gaines' character decides that they need to try and steal a gun because they still need to have a gun because they can't have lost their gun because that makes them look bad.
Oh.
If their own gun shot up their car.
Now we have a scene where the detective, played by Dick Miller, Roy Farrell, has all the parents of the girls in the room with him. And he gives a really funny lecture that, you know, the original tried to insert this cautionary tale for parents in the movie. Well, Dick Miller just spells it out in a way that is so funny.
It gets pretty dark.
It gets dark, but it's also really amusing, really out of place for a movie that's supposedly set in the 50s, which I think this movie does a really good job of time and place. But he talks about, well, he brings up a few things. One, he thinks the kidnapping is fake because they haven't gotten any ransom demands. That surprises the parents. Two, he starts criticizing their parenting. Like, do you ever really talk to your kids? And what they should be talking about, according to him, is sex, pregnancy, STDs, toys, equipment. And meanwhile, the parents are all like, equipment?
Whips and chains and handcuffs and
rubber balls. And it's just really funny that they kind of took this scene and then just like made it so out there. I thought this was hilarious and maybe even the highlight of the movie. And it's a movie that has a lot of highlights.
And then when it ends, Robert Picardo's character asks, what are we going to do? And Roy Farrell says, well, I'm going to go out and earn my money. And you can sit here and think about what your kids ran away from.
So it's kind of the same thing we saw in the original, but much better. So I was thinking we haven't seen enough of Paul Rudd in this movie yet. And spoiler, I love him. But anyway, we do get a scene where Jimmy does something. So he goes over to Angie's house. He doesn't know that she's missing. They haven't spoken in a while. They had an argument earlier. And her dad thinks Jimmy might know where Angie is. And Jimmy's like, isn't Angie here? And her dad's like, no, she's gone. Do you know where she is? And of course, Jimmy knows nothing. So he springs into action.
Yeah, he calls the radio station and has a dedication sent out so that she can theoretically hear this on the radio and give him a call.
Well, it's a movie, so of course she's going to hear it on the radio.
And the song he plays is Come On Everybody again.
Yeah, there's several songs in the movie, but you know, it's not endless. So Angie stops at a payphone and makes a call to Jimmy, and they have a talk that's really sweet and also a little dirty. And then Jimmy decides he's going to join the hunt for Bob once he's found out that Bob callously ran away from his pregnant girlfriend. So now the girls encounter another set of problems. It's 3 hunters in the woods, and they're not just hunters. In the credits, they're called Minutemen. They're like preppers or militia people. They're big into conspiracy theories. They're hiding out from the government in the woods or something.
And they're convinced these 3 girls are at least socialists, if not communists.
Right. And they're played by John Astin, Rance Howard, and Robert Fieldstale. And the girls aren't getting away from them. But then there's a 4th person there. It's Kathy Moriarty. She plays Marie, although her name is never given.
She's the closest thing we have to a Dixie character in this version.
Right. And we'll see more of that later.
And then we're back with Dick Miller continuing his investigation. He's at the drive-in theater now and standing in front of a poster for the 1950s Runaway Daughters and says, they don't make them like they used to. And there are posters for AIP films all over the lobby. I don't know if I've ever seen a drive-in theater with a lobby, but this one has one.
Well, I think it's the concession stand, maybe, or the office.
Oh, I guess that makes more sense.
They always have some kind of building.
There's posters for not only Runaway Daughters, but Shake, Rattle, and Rock, which was its co-feature right next to it. And on the opposite wall, there's Rock All Night, starring Dick Miller, Jack Strip Girl, and Naked Paradise. Another one with Dick Miller in it.
And that's not a Rebel Highway title. So the 3 conspiracy theorists, the Minutemen, leave the girls alone with Marie. And they tell Marie their story, and she decides to let them go and give them sandwiches. She is like the Dixie character here. She's sort of the wise older woman giving them advice on what to do. And she says, well, I'll just tell them you overpowered me. But she doesn't make them hit her. I thought they would at least have to slug her, because that's always what you do in the movies. But they forgot that.
And they stole the sandwiches. Don't forget that.
Oh, well, she gave them sandwiches, but I guess...
Well, that's the official story. They stole them.
Oh, right. And they had the audacity to steal their sandwiches. So the girls drive away, but then they stop again. Every time they stop, it's in the woods, and something bad happens. And this time they find 2 other hunters who at first seem fine. Like they're just going to help them get... They're lost, and they're going to help the girls get back to where they were going.
Yeah, and they go off with them, and it's not too long before they're spotted by the police.
Yeah, this is different cops, not the sheriffs that we saw earlier. These are like highway patrol.
These look like more competent policemen.
Maybe, but... and one of them's Danny Breen. I don't know if you've ever seen him on like, not necessarily in news. Well, anyway.
They shout out, "Please, let the girls go."
And the girls are like, no, they're not kidnapping us, but it's too late.
Let us go. But they're shot, and the girls run, and the police still are shooting, even though both men are down. They continue shooting.
Yeah, when they say all cops are bastards, they meant this movie.
Well, one of them does sit up and pull out his shotgun and then gets shot again, so...
Yeah, I mean, they did have guns, and they had 3 teenage girls with them. So it did look sketchy, but, you could ask questions before you start shooting. Anyway, it is like the one serious moment that has consequences. Somebody actually dies in this movie.
But it turns out to be an okay thing because...
They stop at a convenience store. One of them brings out a newspaper and reads the headlines. Well, those guys weren't just regular hunters. They're killers.
They were the Mad Dog Killers.
Yeah, they were killers wanted by the police. So it's okay.
But there's another story there.
Oh, one of the girls was spotted with the killers, so they are implicated. So now the girls know there's a manhunt after them. So they keep driving, and a cop spots them and decides to turn on his lights and chase them.
A motorcycle cop. That's important because the original had a motorcycle cop chasing them.
Right. So this motorcycle cop, I don't know if they were speeding or if the plates were wrong or something.
Well, are still in a stolen car.
Well, it's not the stolen car. They traded in the first stolen car for another car at the scrapyard. Remember?
Oh, that's right. I forgot that. Dabs Greer.
Yeah, Dabs Greer. And so that car's probably not hot. That car's definitely not hot because he said that was the one plus to that vehicle. But it's not theirs. And there is a manhunt out for teenage girls that may have been kidnapped or may have run away. So the cop probably had good reason to stop them or to try to stop them. But they don't stop. He doesn't stop them. They make it all the way to the Navy Recruitment Center.
And the cop thinks he's pulled them over, and they get out of the car and just run to the building.
And lo and behold, the person that comes out of that building next is Bob.
Yep, and boy, is he surprised.
He thought he got away scot-free.
The cop runs up, tells everybody to line up, and one of them turns around and goes, "We are lined up." Because they're all standing one by one on the stairway.
And now we have a bit of, I guess, plot convenience. Because Jimmy pulls up on his motorcycle. All 3 sets of parents pull up. So I guess they didn't stop as many times as the girls, and that's how they were able to get there exactly as fast in their vehicle.
And Dick Miller comes back.
Yep, and Detective...
with his saxophone theme.
Detective Farrell is there.
I really want to go back to 1994 and have a television series spinoff of Dick Miller's character.
And all the escapades, all his cases.
Yeah, I think that would have been awesome.
That would have been fun. And so all that's left to do is for the girls greet their parents happily, but Mary has already gone inside. She needs the restroom. So she doesn't see the parents come up. She comes out of the restroom with a huge smile on her face.
You skipped the whole part where Jimmy is beating the crap out of Bob.
Oh, sorry. There's so much happening here. I was trying to get to the good news. So yeah, Jimmy throws a punch and socks Bob in the mouth. Mary comes out of the restroom with a huge smile on her face, and any girl of menstruating age or older will know what that means. But we don't find out. She doesn't say it yet. She comes out to see her parents and they hug, and then she goes to hug her friends like, "Oh, yay. Because she's not pregnant. She was wrong. But that's not good news for Bob. He's like,
no, Bob's on the bus and headed for wherever he's going. I don't remember where.
No, he says, "I'm going to spend 3 years in the Arctic Circle." And Mary goes, "Well, have fun." And Bob gets taken away.
Recruiting officer puts him on the bus and he rides off with a look of shock on his face.
That was a fun twist on a fun movie.
Over the credits, the original version of Let the Good Times Roll plays, and also some sounds from Sputnik.
We see Sputnik. Sputnik makes a cameo too.
Kinda.
Well, you know what they were going for. And that's the end. So there's a tagline for this called, "They were looking for adventure, but found trouble instead," which I think kind of undersells the movie. I think it was a lot more fun than that.
I just think that having the Easter eggs of all the characters' names, the little bits where they throw in both AIP logos, and like Dick Miller wasn't going to be in a Joe Dante movie at the time, but having him in there too, it just made this whole thing so much fun.
I didn't know why this wasn't the first episode released of the series, because I think this is a great segue from the original to this new concept. With the remakes, basically title-only remakes, but it's more conceptual than actual remake. So Road Racers was the first one. I think that a more appropriate intro would have been Runaway Daughters. And I'm saying that not having seen every single one of the Rebel Highways yet. But it's so fun. It's such a breezy, light, exciting, and period, not accurate, but the homage to that period is so on point that had I seen that as the first episode of the series, I would have wanted to watch it, all of it.
And I think maybe you would have been disappointed with the rest of the series. I think episode 4 is a good place for this one.
Well, I found some reviews of this, contemporary reviews, and at least 3 of them said that this was the best of the bunch. And those reviewers had seen at least half of them. So I will reserve judgment, but I have a feeling that I might feel the same way too once I've seen all of them.
Well, the thing about Joe Dante's movies, this one was written by Charles S. Haas, who also wrote the screenplay for Matinee. And that was another period piece.
Mm-hmm. Also an homage to a bygone era.
Right. With small influences of what was going on politically. Here they're talking about Sputnik, and that one, it's the Cuban Missile Crisis. And maybe it's the same universe, but that means there's 2 Dick Millers.
One of the reviews I found said this was a sort of companion piece to Matinee, which doesn't mean remake or sequel or anything like that.
It would make an okay double feature.
Yeah, exactly. A great 2-pack DVD release.
Well, Joe Dante has for a long time been my favorite director, and it's because he has such a love of the genre.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts Easter eggs in almost all of his films, if not all of them.
Yeah, I think that adds to the fun of going to see the movies. Even when a movie is not a lighthearted, fun movie like Howling, just knowing that there's this care given to the actual experience of watching the movie is something I'm really grateful for when I watch a movie. And I think that this movie has just been lavished with that kind of care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you might see small things here and there in these films if you know what to look for, but these are so blatantly obvious and it's on full display. So even the most unsophisticated moviegoer can catch a lot of these.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know if this is still current slang, but Joe Dante understood the assignment here.
Oh, definitely.
And the screenwriter, I give him credit for the same. The lines are a little corny, a little cheesy, a little over the top, but we watched the original recently and they kind of went cornball there too. And comparing it to the original, I like the original a lot, but this just was such a great experience that I would say it's better. But you couldn't have this without the original. So it's an homage to those kinds of movies, but it's also elevating those. He used a lot of the same character names, a lot of the same character types.
First names. The last names are all fun.
Well, we've already talked about that. So he's cherry picking what he's using, but he's also giving his own stamp to the movie by not doing a straight up remake. And I think that was brilliant of them to decide to do it that way. I don't know if I'm going to keep feeling that way, but having seen this one, I definitely approve.
I think sticking the Paul Rudd character added a lot, even though he didn't have much to do.
Right.
But he's so funny.
He is. His attitude.
Don't crowd me.
He has no reason to have that attitude. Nothing happens to him to give him such a, but he just cops it just to have a persona, I guess. And he plays it so well. He's really deadpan in this. He doesn't realize that he's parodying something, as a character. He doesn't realize that he's a rebel and also like everybody else.
I thought his character was very similar to the one he plays in Wet Hot American Summer.
That's true. I always think of him from this era, though, as his character in Clueless, and couldn't be really more different here than he was there, mostly because he looks almost exactly the same. I mean, we joke that Paul Rudd doesn't age, but he looks like a baby here. And I think that is one of his first movies. This came out before Clueless, so he wasn't really a thing yet. Clueless was 1995.
No, he's credited as Paul Stephen Rudd in this.
Right. And he had some other credits before that, but from the looks of it, these weren't big roles and they weren't big movies or TV shows, whatever they are. So this might have been his breakout if people had seen it. But he is utterly delightful here.
And aside from the Joe Dante film regulars, we also mentioned Samuel Z. Arkoff making an appearance, and Fabian plays Jimmy's father.
Mm-hmm. Kind of playing against type here. He's the dad coming down on his son, crowding him. Roger Corman seemed to be playing his role as Bob's dad in sort of a cartoonish way. Like they're just so darn proud of him, going after the Ruskies. I think that was the subtext, at least, of what they were saying. And in the original, Bob is 20. In this, he's not even 17 yet, and he's already joining the Navy. Couldn't he even do that? Even in the 50s? But anyway, they're letting him be young and not older than Mary, which I thought was very creepy in the original.
And you and I discussed this before we started recording. Aside from Roy Farrell, which I don't know where that name came from, Bob's is the only name that doesn't have AIP history in it.
Well, I decided Stephen Terrell, who played Bob in the original, also played a character called Randolph or Randy in Motorcycle Gang. So I was wondering if maybe that came from the two characters of Steve Terrell. Although it would have been cool if they'd called him Terrell instead of Randolph. That's the homage. Maybe if we ever see Joe Dante again, we can ask him.
Yeah, until I hear differently, I'm just going to say that he was named after Steve Terrell's characters.
Okay. So with this series, as we always do, we grade the movie based on a scale where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic. I think I could guess and even risk money on what your grade's going to be. But tell everybody, Jeff.
Well, Runaway Daughters is a runaway A awesome. There's nothing not to enjoy here. You get clips from an old AIP movie. You've got all the references. You've got the names. You've got a pretty tight cast. It's a lot of fun. And particularly if you've been doing a deep dive into these films as we have.
Mm-hmm. It's a love letter to AIP, really.
It really is. And I'm willing to bet that you feel very similar.
I think I've already said in at least 20 different ways how much I enjoy this movie. It's light, it's breezy, it's fun, it's funny, and it's just a great poke at the old AIP movies, not in a mean way, but in a loving way. And it takes the original story, kind of, and makes it so much better. And it was a good movie to begin with, but this, I would give it an A+. I want to give Runaway Daughters, the original, an A-, because it was kind of draggy and slow in places. And they weren't runaways for enough of the movie, but here they're runaways for almost an hour. And it's a great road trip movie on top of everything else. So yeah, A+. Would watch again.
To find out more about Rebel Highway and the AIP films that influenced it, you can visit our website, aippod.com. There you can find posters, trailers, and other media for all the films that we reviewed. You could also message us and give us notes on what we were doing right and wrong on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's aippod.com.
And I think that's going to wrap our look at episode 4 of Rebel Highway, Runaway Daughters. For the American International Podcast, I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in.
Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.